I know this might seem crazy, but hear me out. I think HermitCraft is evolving in Season 10. The server is reinventing and changing itself on a scale that we've never really seen before, and it's actually so subtle that I don't think most people realize the sheer genius of what the Hermits are doing, not just as a group, but individually as well. I mean, as an average HermitCraft viewer, I've been really enjoying Season 10. The builds have been bigger and crazier than ever before, Hermits have been engaging in cool storylines, but those are all normal for HermitCraft, right? Wrong. Some of them represent what I think is the Hermits actively understanding how to make their videos and the server amazing. They figured out the secret sauce that makes HermitCraft so good, and they're adding even more to make it even better. Again, I know this sounds crazy, but just hear me out, and if you agree by the end, maybe even subscribe. But let me show you the example that gave me the light bulb moment for this whole video. The mail system. You see, when you go back and watch old HermitCraft videos, one thing you notice in all the collabs is that they're planned outside of the video. People message on Discord and coordinate, and that was how the Hermits communicated most of the time, unless it was like a pre-structured collab, which is great until you realize how much better the mail system made it. In the end, right, the difference between HermitCraft as an SMP and just watching a player play in a single player world is how the Hermits interact with each other, how their individual goals and progression affect each other, and how their builds inspire other Hermits to keep going.
I'm looking at, you know, I said I was a fan of yours 10 years ago. I'm still a fan of yours now, clearly. Because every time I fly over the mountain, I'm like, man, I need to click myself into gear. So I'm starting to work on my town a bit more as well.
But when you're messaging on Discord, the audience can't see that, and that's arguably one of the most interesting parts of the interaction. I mean, look at the collabs before the mail, or collabs that are made now but are organized over Discord. The initial coordination is so important that they act it out for the viewers to understand what's going on, but they already know what's going on. Why are they acting? Anyway, why not just make that real? The mail system drags the whole idea of Discord messaging down from being a necessity to a luxury. If they want to keep a certain discussion or interaction private, obviously they can, but it makes for a much better experience, not just for viewers, but also for the Hermits when they get to stay in the game, stay immersed, and still, you know, talk to their friends. It gives you a reason to talk to people. It keeps the flow of the video going and is a natural segue, and it even lets the audience know around when the video was created.
So where does...
It's also kind of awesome because, at least personally, whenever I see that little mail light flick on in the Hermit's bases, it's so exciting. It's like a little gambler's high to see what's going to happen, whether it's an interaction or just, you know, spam advertising mail. And that's not all. The exact same thing happened in Season 9 as well with the proximity chat system. They brought voice chatting into the game, making the entire experience so much more immersive and interesting.
More importantly, is the moon big? Oh.
And prox chat was honestly even better because it elevated pranks so much more as well. There suddenly became no need for someone to give a heads up to record or to ask to join a call before a prank happened for fear of losing out on the reaction, which obviously made the reactions better, which helped to make things even more interesting. You also just tend to see a lot more interactions between the Hermits because of prox chat, because just going up to someone and talking to them is one less step than, you know, having to invite them to call on Discord and coordinating the whole thing. It made the parts of video making that used to be mundane or boring or unseen much more interesting. And speaking of that, let's talk about the second big thing that Season 10 did. Permits. Look, I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard about the idea of permits, I honestly hate the idea. It seemed like it would force the Hermits into building shops that they didn't want to otherwise, which would make them irritated or bored, which in turn would make the videos and the shops less fun or interesting. And besides, who even cares if there's a shop for the low tier books? Who cares if there's a shop for Nillium? Why burden some poor Hermit with that shop and potentially take away a good shop from a Hermit who might have been willing to build it but didn't get the permit for it? And what about competition? Why would anyone sell anything cheap if there wasn't another Hermit who could do it better? Why not charge like 50 diamonds per rocket box? But trust me, I was so wrong. The permits are, although flawed, an incredible addition to the server. So good, in fact, that they might become a recurring thing. I mean, I don't think it's likely that they'll reappear in the next season or whatever, but I think in adding them, Grian has shown that he understands some of the fundamental issues with the HermitCraft shopping district, how to maybe start to fix them. You see, the shopping district is great and all, but it's pretty clear that there are some major issues that prevent it from really being the best it could be. The shops that always do the best are those which save other people from grinding, be it for books or sand or concrete. But they're also a pain to stock because, you know, you have to grind to stock them, so they're quite normally out of stock. Other shops, which might be easier to stock, tend to do less well or not even get built, because what's the point of building this entire shop for candles if you're only going to get a few diamonds once or twice per season? But if you can't reliably get the good stuff and none of the easy stuff that you might need in a specific situation is in stock, well, relying on the shopping district becomes much less useful. And the shopping district itself doesn't work as it should have, and it doesn't have all the effects that it might have if it's regulated properly, and well, that's the solution. governing the shopping district, getting someone who the majority agree can create rules and order within the shopping district to fix the problems at its very heart. Which they already tried in Season 7, and it failed, of course, because although Scar's mayorship was awesome and it led nicely into the overarching mycelium war of Season 7, despite all that power and all those diamonds, they didn't really do much actual governing. Bdubs got a law proposed, good job, can keep your head up high, but apart from that and building roads, they didn't really change much else.
I'm thinking right now, maybe I just off myself.
The issue is, as a hermit, you just want to have fun with your friends, not become their boss and start forcing them to do things or change things they don't want to. That's not fun. It makes complete sense that Scar would play into a storyline instead. So Grian, I think before Season 7, decided to try it again, but fix it this time. Instead of Grian unilaterally coming up with the rules, the entire server agreed to work with the permit system before the season started, and even then, Grian didn't act like he was the sole arbiter of the permit rules. In fact, he created some shadowy bosses who wanted him to be stricter, and even brought in later to help him make the permits work as intended.
I don't make the rules.
Surely they're open on Sundays. Between 2 and 3 p.m? Right, we're trying to bribe him now. We don't accept bribes. For goodness sake.
He's already getting annoyed.
What do you accept? He plays his character a little too well. It's almost like he's enjoying it. Respect for the opening.
So, what did the permits actually do? Well, the first thing, and I think the main thing, is they tried to stop the accumulation of diamonds in the hands of just a few shop owners. For example, the XP and the book permits were separate, despite these shops usually being very closely linked. And similarly, the best permit, Enchanted Books, was broken into 3 parts to try and make it even less lucrative. Now, this didn't fully work. Cleo's absolutely still mega rich from selling the high tier books, but the idea was pretty clearly there. They wanted to nerf the best permit to try and make every permit a bit more desirable. The whole idea of hermits losing out on shops they wanted to build was also countered by the fact that permits could be traded, meaning that if a hermit really wanted a permit, they would be able to barter and bargain for it, with a great example of this being like Tango's redstone shop, or the conglomerate that ended up being Doc's wood shop. But here's the main thing the permits did. They added a game to shop making. Obviously, things like collective shops encouraged interactions between hermits, but the actual genius of the permits was they shifted the focus of the shopping district away from making diamonds. Suddenly, because you're gonna have to build a shop anyway, and because some of them, your lower tier permits, were basically gonna make no money anyway, why not just make the shop itself worth it? Make the shop fun and interesting, so you get some value out of the permit at least. Look at Impulse creating an addictive fishing minigame for Grass Shop, or nearly every one of Cub's shops with gimmicks and sound effects and even whole songs. This led to shops which were more interesting as a whole, which had people much more invested in them than normal. Like, think back to a wildly successful shop from a previous season, like, let's say the Barge. The Barge had Grian doing stuff like this.
I have way too many.
I can't do it. I
Do
can't
it.
believe what I'm seeing.
More.
Is this how people would act if Bezos was just throwing money in funding?
And it was a beautiful build, an incredibly successful and profitable shop. But did it have more than just chests with prices on them? He had a few ARGs at one point, but that wasn't the shop. And now we flash forward to Season 10, where Mumbo is building an iron mine complete with sound effects. Joe's Froglight shop developed into the most addictive game the server had seen for about a month. Or Joe's F-tier bookstore that literally became a legal practice. Speaking of the legal practice as well, this isn't really so much how HermitCraft improved as much as, wow, the stories of this season are free-flowing. You had the agreed upon permits, which spawned the Popo, which spawned the court, which led to a literal court case, one more on the way, and even punishments that made things even better. I mean, Doc playing Skyblock for 2 weeks was hilarious, and I couldn't have seen it happening any other way. And it's not like the rest of the server is just waiting around for 1 or 2 hermits to come up with ideas. The entire group as a whole is evolving. I think almost without question, nearly every single hermit has gotten a lot better at the game, which allows for much more intense and fierce competitions and much more complex minigames to take place on the server. For example, Cub's Labyrinth, which ended up being so hard well, I'll let Etho tell you himself.
I got a Kleenex stuffed in my nose now because my blood pressure was getting so high from frustration. My nose started to bleed. I can't imagine what would be getting me so frustrated.
Now, of course, this just means that it's only a matter of time before we get a HermitCraft escape room, but I'm getting off topic. The point is, the hermits are clearly all working on reinventing themselves, be it Mumbo trying to get better at not just building, but art as a whole, Bdubs' videos becoming Studio Ghibli films, or Zed hosting his biggest game show yet. This evolution is clear because of the new members that were added in Season 10 as well, Joel and Skiz. Obligatory mention that I called this a year ago, by the way, but anyway, Joel is easily one of the most hardworking hermits in the server, with some of the biggest biggest and most impressive builds of the entire season, and the man has played, quite frankly, too much Minecraft. His work ethic is crazy. His counterpart, Skizz, however, kinda had me stumped for a bit. Don't get me wrong, I know that he's great friends with a bunch of hermits, but just being friends usually isn't enough for being added to HermitCraft. And the special sauce with Skizz isn't immediately tangible and jumping out to you like it does with a massive Joel build or his skill at Minecraft. And then it hit me. Right? Where Joel has massive builds and insane amounts of dedication, Skizz has a massive heart and an unending desire to not just improve on himself, but also involve others in his improvement. I saw this tweet floating around the other day, and this I think sums it up so perfectly. When you want interesting and fun interactions between friends, Skizz makes it so much easier to be friendly. He's always willing to participate in jokes, always down to make something more interesting, or jump headfirst into a situation, even if he doesn't know the most about what he's doing. I mean, look at him being Cleo's lawyer. The way Skizz engages with the server is like he's just a walking morale booster. I think all of that shows that the hermits aren't just sitting pretty and coasting by. In fact, for the past several months, HermitCraft has actually been getting beaten out by lifesteal on Google Trends.
The method used here to determine the popularity of HermitCraft versus lifesteal is pretty imperfect. When you compare HermitCraft to the word lifesteal, you get the graph I mentioned, and I think that a large portion of the search for the word lifesteal is likely the server, but definitely not all of it. Meanwhile, if you compare it to the phrase lifesteal SMP, HermitCraft completely demolishes, but obviously most people don't search for lifesteal SMP, they search for the word lifesteal, the same way people search for HermitCraft from the words HermitCraft SMP. Anyway, all I'm saying is this data kind of sucks, but I don't know how to make it better.
Anyway, I doubt this competition means much to hermits themselves, but I think it perfectly encapsulates the needs for why the hermits are experimenting in the ways shown in this video. But you see what I mean, right? Trying to fix the shopping district, bringing things from outside the game into the game in a fun way, becoming better at playing the game, and adding people who bring unique skill sets to the server and outside of the server, and all the while still maintaining the identity of the server we know and love, to the point where most people aren't even talking about the changes. That is evolution, man. That is HermitCraft becoming the best it has ever been. I haven't even mentioned how I think Grian has actually come up with the perfect formula for the Life series, which just kind of feeds into HermitCraft now, or some of the weird overarching lore theories I have for Season 10 as a whole, but I'll save those for future videos. In the meantime though, you should watch the story of how Grian made the Life series. Totally unbiased, but I think it's super interesting. Subscribe.